Lucy for hosting us here, and Pizza Hut for the pizza. It was awesome. I also just realised in the break that I have colour coordinated with my slides. They are all pink and grey. That was not intentional. I'd like to just share a really amusing thought that I had yesterday when I was finishing off this talk, which was, I was thinking to myself, I'm giving a talk about imposter syndrome, and I'll explain what that is in a minute. But I'm not a psychologist, and I haven't extensively studied this subject. I only really have my personal experience to comment on this. And I thought perhaps maybe the audience here would rather hear something about product management rather than imposter syndrome. And as I did this, I realised that there was an irony in this, because I was feeling like an imposter talking about imposter syndrome. So I'm going to go on to talk about what imposter syndrome is. So I think the philosopher Bertrand Russell really encapsulated it with this statement: the whole problem with the world is that fools and fanatics are always so certain of themselves, and yet the wiser people are so full of doubts. So imposter syndrome was first identified in 1978 by the psychologists Pauline Rose Clance and Suzanne Imes, where they studied high-achieving women who had achieved significant results in their professional and academic lives. But despite this external validation, these women lacked internal recognition of their accomplishments. And this led to Clance and Imes defining imposter syndrome as an individual experience of self-perceived intellectual phoniness or fraud. And it's the feeling that you've only succeeded due to luck, not talent or ability, and that you haven't earned your achievements, or that your ideas and skills are not worthy of attention. Now, since that study, psychologists have gone on to prove that imposter syndrome can affect anybody, regardless of gender, age, race, or occupation. And there is often no threshold of accomplishment that puts these feelings to rest, because apparently even Einstein himself felt like an imposter. Studies suggest that around 70% of people will feel imposter syndrome at some point in their career, but I personally believe that it can affect all of us at some point, because I believe it's an inherent part of the human condition. So in case you're wondering if you are suffering from imposter syndrome, there is a test that you can take. And we can circulate this link around afterwards as well. I took it, and no surprise, it came out as I have frequent feelings of being an imposter, which is why I'm talking here today. So the thing that makes imposter syndrome so insidious, it comes down to pluralistic ignorance, which is where we each doubt ourselves privately because we think we're alone in thinking that way, whereas nobody else voices their doubts. And this is because we know ourselves from the inside, but we don't know others from the inside, we only know them from the outside. So we are constantly aware of our own doubts, fears, and idiocies, whereas with others, we're only aware of them by what they do or what they tell us. And the reality is that everybody else is every bit as disturbed as we are. But the crippling thought is that people like us couldn't possibly triumph knowing what we do about ourselves. And so we leave the possibility of success to others. Valerie Young, who is an expert on imposter syndrome, has identified 5 ways that it manifests itself. The first is as the perfectionist, who sets excessively high goals for themselves, and even if they meet 99% of those goals, they will feel that they have failed, because any small mistake will make them question their competence. The second is the superwoman or superman, where you push yourselves to work harder than anybody else, usually involving staying late in the office long after everybody else has gone home. And you're addicted to the validation that comes from working rather than the work itself. The third is the natural genius, who judges their competence on the speed and ease at which new things come to them, rather than the effort that they put into it. And if it takes a long time to master something, then they feel shame. The fourth is the soloist, who feels like they have to accomplish things on their own. Being independent, they don't ask for any help, because if they do, that's a sign of failure. And the fifth and last one is the expert, whose competence is based on what and how much they know, and they fear being exposed as inexperienced or unknowledgeable. They need to know absolutely everything about a project before they'll start work on it, and they're often seeking out new courses and training to improve skills. So I'm not going to ask, but I personally have felt all 5 of those over the last year, and I'm pretty sure it resonates with maybe quite a few people in this room. So I'm going to talk a bit more about my experience of feeling like an imposter. Within Holiday Extras, there are 5 companies. Holiday Extras is the travel ancillary company, the UK's leading travel ancillary company. Sorry, get that out right. And I was working previously for the distribution business, which sells airport parking and hotels, lounges, insurance, everything but the holiday itself. I was headhunted to move to a sister business, which deals with fulfillment for the UK's main theme parks and theatre brands, that is selling a hotel plus a ticket package. I was headhunted to lead on a CRO project that had gone just a little bit rogue. It was running about several months over schedule and there was no clear line in sight. Just before this happened, I was working well within my comfort zone as the product manager of the integrations and core services teams, which is back end. So I was doing technical product management, and that was really my natural habitat. I was really at home with APIs and microservices and data platforms, and I really, really loved what I was doing. I felt that I was deepening my knowledge in this area and becoming a real expert for the business, with people seeking me out to help them with solving business and user problems. But I saw the move as an opportunity to get out of my comfort zone and to learn new skills. So over the course of 3 months, I had to work really, really closely with one of our key partners, building my relationship management, negotiation, and influencing skills. I've also flexed my project manager muscles in getting that project delivered 5 months ahead of the originally stated timeline. So all round, it was deemed a success. And then I was left wondering, what next? So that project was focused around front-end optimization, wanting to improve the conversion rates for our partners' websites. And I knew very little around front-end product management, development, and technologies. I hadn't ever really done CRO before. And the last time I had worked front end was when we were launching new products like car hire and transfers, which was pretty big bang with that push for early growth. So the difference here was that it was a mature product which needed constant iteration to drive that conversion growth. We started up a new pod, which is what we call our sub-teams within web, and they're focused on their individual missions that support the business strategy. And my pod was focused on innovation and CRO for the booking flows. And I became responsible for a team of 5 engineers, a tester, and a delivery manager. And we began demoing weekly to the group CEO, the product director, the managing director, and the CTO, so stakes were pretty high on that one. I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. I felt like there was an incredible amount of pressure to succeed, and I felt like I was going to be exposed as the fraud I really felt I was. So I tried to find my way on my own. I did loads and loads of reading, books and articles, and I went to the Google Conversions Conference back in March in Dublin. And I went back over all of my basic product manager training from years back, the lean testing, wireframing, and user feedback. And I started to feel a bit more confident in what I was doing. But I got stuck. And wireframes in particular became my nemesis. Although I'd created tons of them to demonstrate my ideas and build out concepts, I wasn't sure how to move them forwards from that point. Were my ideas good at all? Were any of them actually worth testing? I felt like I needed someone to validate that they were good, because honestly, I thought they were a bit shit. So I showed them to the MD, and his feedback was that these were all really, really good. But all I heard was, had I thought of this? I started to doubt whether I really could do it, and I didn't feel like I was enjoying this process at all. And that feeling worsened during the weekly demos. So I felt an intense level of scrutiny around what I was doing, like it wasn't good enough. And I was sure I was going to get found out as incompetent soon enough. And then they'd move me back to back-end product management, with any luck. And yet, demo after demo, the feedback was unanimously positive. And we were shipping value to users, we were helping to solve their problems, and we had some really encouraging data from our split tests. So my delivery manager couldn't understand why I was being so hard on myself when everything was going so well. I had an aha moment a few weeks ago in demo, and we were discussing a particular pain point around payment stage conversion within our booking flow. And the group CEO was critiquing one of the key features within the booking flow, which was the basket. So I previously prepared some wireframes to show how this could be optimized, but not showing them to anybody because I didn't think they were very good. And also because a designer hadn't come up with them. But as the discussion progressed, I realized that these had value in solving this very problem. So I pinged the wireframes across to the group CEO, and he reviewed them and gave me the green light to go and test the ideas. In fact, it wasn't so much a green light as a go, 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 why the hell haven't we done this already? Which was very validating. So what did I actually do to combat my feelings of being an imposter? The first thing was to be really honest with myself and to recognise how I was feeling and why. A powerful first step was to label it, I'm feeling like an imposter. I felt like I was out of my depth and like I didn't know what I was doing. So, that at some point in the not too distant future, I was going to be found out and then the whole stack of cards was going to fall down. I kept exploring this line of thinking and realised I felt like an imposter because I felt I needed to be good at design as a front-end product manager. Like, I actually needed to be a designer. A key conversation with my line manager was around my wireframing skills, or lack of them, and I told her how I felt that there was an expectation from the people I was working with that I would be an expert at this, and that I was driving the process myself rather than involving the designers. So I told her I felt pretty clueless, and that my wireframes were really awful, and her feedback massively helped in resetting that expectation. Because she explained to me that wireframes don't need to be perfect, they just need to be able to convey the concept really clearly to those who can then develop those concepts further. And also, if I'd never had training in this particular area, how could I expect myself to be an expert? So her support helped me to relax up on the expectations I was setting on myself, particularly those around being perfect in something. And it helped to move me from a place of feeling useless to feeling empowered. I was learning a new skill after all, so I can't be expected at this stage to be a master. And anyway, the whole point of wireframes is that they're a bit rough. So rough, in fact, I haven't put any in this slide deck. So I shared how I was feeling with colleagues and was really surprised to learn that they also had experienced and felt like this in the past. And I told them my fears about people thinking I was rubbish at my job, and they just said that was fairly normal given the position. I can't expect to be an expert when I'm just starting out in something new. I was being way too hard on myself. So they reassured me that I was a great product manager and that this was a new opportunity to build new skills and gain a different type of experience to add to my PM bow. So speaking to others really helped me to gain perspective on the situation and learn not to be so hard on myself. And it also gave me an important sense of belonging, that I wasn't on my own in these thoughts and that others had experienced them too, which meant I wasn't so isolated in this. Something else that really helped was meditation. I'm a massive fan of meditation and I have been practicing for 3 years. And I used it to understand why I felt like I was a fraud and to really explore these thoughts and feelings and to understand whether they were helping or hindering me. And of course, they are hindering me. So I developed a different mindset off the back of exploring those. Now, one of the key traits of a great product manager is curiosity. And curiosity starts from a place of not knowing. So we keep asking questions until we understand more. And importantly, a curious mind is comfortable with not knowing the answers from the outset. I recognised that giving validity to feeling like an imposter was preventing me from exercising my curiosity. It was holding me back from asking all of the dumb questions because I felt that others would view me as stupid or inexperienced or unknowledgeable, and that I would therefore expose myself and feel shame in front of colleagues and senior leadership. But again, by remembering that I was new to this type of product management, I reframed my thoughts. And I thought back to another situation when I was learning something new, which was when I was learning to play rugby about 15 years ago. And I didn't start out then with playing for England, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately. It took a lot of learning and practicing of skills to get good and then great at it. And the way to do that was to keep turning up. So as the product manager, I needed to keep showing up and to keep practicing and to keep asking all of the dumb questions. So where am I now? Well, it's a bit of a cliche to say it's been a journey. I'm still not 100% confident with aspects of what I'm doing, but I know that if they were truly awful, that they would have done something about it by now. They're not having secret meetings discussing how terrible I am. It would be really incongruent with the feedback that I have been receiving and the tangible, objective, measurable success from the fact that we are shipping stuff, I've got a really motivated team, and we are increasing revenue for the business and just generally doing awesome things. So, to bring this to a wrap, the feelings of being an imposter are really hinting at something core to the human condition, which is our vulnerability. We often internalise the idea that in order to be loved or lovable, we need to achieve. We keep striving for achievement and perfection in order to feel of value to others. And when we don't reach those unrealistic targets that we set ourselves, we feel like failures or not good enough. Brené Brown, who I absolutely love, and you totally need to check out her TED Talk on the power of vulnerability, says that we need to have courage, which means to live with our whole heart. I believe that we can combat feeling like imposters by having the courage to be our imperfect selves and keep learning and keep open to new experiences. So if and when you feel like an imposter in any aspect of life, I want you to remember this, that you have talent, you are capable, and you do belong. Thank you.